Hey y'all. Today I'm so excited to celebrate my favorite movie, Sinners. Happy Sinners Day to all who celebrate. It is the 1 year anniversary of the premiere of my favorite movie, the instant classic masterpiece from Ryan Coogler, Sinners. We're going to be talking about it in depth from my perspective, so expect it to be laced with the Jezebel spirit because this movie includes Stack. We have a lot to get into, so let's get started. Thank you so much for clicking on my video, and if you're returning, welcome back to Chats and Chill. Today we are talking about my favorite movie, Sinners. Now, most of you have probably heard me reference Sinners because I reference it, I quote it, I talk about it all the time, specifically Smoke and Stack because I absolutely adore Michael B. Jordan. I think he did his big one with Sinners, but if I'm just gonna be honest, I felt like he deserved an Oscar a long time ago with Creed. Listen, don't argue with me, argue with someone else. He pulled out some incredible performances, and although Creed 3 is my favorite Creed, his performance in Creed 2 still sits with me. We could talk about Michael B. Jordan all day long, but today we are going to talk about Sinners, wherein which my husband, Stack B. Jordan, is starring. I cannot wait to talk about it. But before we do, if you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. So Sinners opens up with Sammy walking into his father's church. There is a service going on. Someone screams his name. Most people assume that the person who yells out Sammy is his mom, but I always look at her. She's in the front pew on the right. She's the first lady of the church, and I never see her mouth move. Plus, it sounded like a teenage boy. I don't know who it was, but I always try to look real fast and see who says his name. Who knows? It could have been his mom. It could have just been an editing thing. I don't know. But who do you think it was that yelled out Sammy? Sammy walks into the church. He has gashes on his face. My nephew looks like he got beat down. He's holding a piece of a guitar. And his dad, who is actually preaching, walks down calmly. He keeps the calm because clearly everybody was about to panic. But again, this man is a true leader. He keeps the calm. He walks over to his son, and he's already warned his son about being a musician, and he's already encouraged him to leave those sinning ways behind. And clearly it didn't work out for Sammy. So he's trying to bring him back to base and basically say, hey, this is a moment where you can give your life over to the Lord. Go ahead and let go of this music. You can use your gift to help the church. Let this go. We already know Sammy's stance. We already heard Smoke, his older cousin, who we will meet later. We've already heard Smoke try and encourage Sammy to leave the blues behind, but he doesn't want to. So in this moment, we don't know all that yet. We're just meeting my nephew, Sammy. And so he walks in and his dad is like, you got to let this go. As Uncle Jed, the pastor and Sammy's dad, as Uncle Jed is talking, you see these flashes where his mannerisms mimic a ghoul. We don't know who this ghoul is yet. We don't even know what exactly this ghoul is. We just know he has a fire set on his hand. So clearly I need to know who his nail lady was because he was killing it. Definitely looks better than my little nubs. But anyway, we don't know much. We also see a lot of agony flashing in and out of the congregation. Like we see people, falling apart and dying. And then we come back to the congregation who's in all white. So clearly something is wrong and there are memories flashing in and out. So we flash back to present day where we see Sammy all alone right before sunrise, picking cotton for the sunflower plantation where he lives and works with his family. And as he's finishing up this huge bag of cotton, mind you, when you pick cotton, the pieces aren't like gobs of cotton. They're like this big. So he's been picking probably all night. But he has a lot of plans today, so he doesn't want to have to work. He wants to get his workload done beforehand. But in this moment, we see him walking out. Now, Sister Beatrice comes out and she's like, hey, Sammy, are you strumming that guitar tonight? Now, I get the feeling that maybe Sister Beatrice, a little talky, chatty patty, or he does not want to answer questions. She keeps asking him. She was like, am I gonna have to get it through the grapevine? Or are you gonna tell me? And he's like, I'll see you tomorrow, Miss Beatrice. So clearly she is a member of his dad's service, and she's probably who's been snitching on him playing his guitar. He comes back. We see him interact with his mom who's washing clothes. They have such a playful relationship. Then we see him walk into his home where there's a lot of people. There are kids and pallets on the floor. Now see Sammy, he's got this take on the day energy, and then he comes back and he feels around under his bed. Something is missing. We later find out what that something is when he shows up to his dad's church after having showered and gotten dressed. He shows up to his dad's church and there is his guitar. Now, this is one of the nicest and the coolest guitars I've ever seen. I have such a plain little green guitar. I love my guitar, but it's so plain. And when I saw Sammy's, I was like, maybe I would be inspired to practice if mine looked like that. Maybe. And so he walks in, and his dad, who is preparing for tomorrow's sermon, so we know it's a Saturday, his dad is preparing, and he sees Sammy walk in. and look at the guitar, and he's like, yep, come on in. I want you to help me with tomorrow's sermon. Sammy didn't just wake up and prepare to work early. He also prepared for the sermon early because he knows the sermon by heart. He doesn't even look down at the Bible. He actually closes it to show his dad, I'm prepared, but I want to play that guitar. So it's clear that Sammy is not shy of hard work. He is happy to devote his time and energy to the things that he has to do so that he can get a chance to do the things that he wants to do. Now, something Sammy says to his dad, which his dad nods along in pride, is he says, you're up early. And he goes, jump on the work. Don't let the work jump on you. My granddaddy used to say that. I often let the work jump on me. As a matter of fact, the work often stomped me out. So we see Sammy makes his dad proud, but there's just this one thing between them. The blues. Sammy wants to play the blues, and his dad wants him to devote his gift to the church. Now, something that we don't know at this stage of the movie is Sammy has a very special gift. He is able to pierce the veil between the living and the ancestors. And when he plays music, we're all together. And that is very special. His dad wants him to use that at his church. Sammy wants to just play because that's where his passion lies. But something that we find out his dad has warned him about is evil entities are attracted to Sammy's gift. Now, something I find to be very interesting is his dad is a preacher. And as someone who grew up as a preacher's grandchild, and I grew up in the church, Sammy's dad felt like home to me. The whole energy around Sammy's dad felt like I was seeing my granddaddy. So it was very interesting because the first time I saw this movie, my granddaddy died like a couple of months before this movie came out. And as a matter of fact, the first time I laughed since his funeral was watching Sinners. It was the first time I laughed, which then compelled me to keep going back to see it because it was like making me come out of my little sadness. And I watched the movie 10 times in theaters, 7 times in the IMAX, and then 3 times at the Evo. His dad warns him about his gift possibly attracting evil entities. And as a matter of fact, he says, you keep dancing with the devil, one day he's going to follow you home. Something I found a little interesting about that was it's so fear-based, but it's not just evil entities that are attracted to this gift. It's everyone. Everyone is attracted to this gift. And that actually can be said about a lot of gifts, not just this one in the movie, but when you are gifted or you have something special about you, everyone will be attracted to it. That's why it's important not to teach from a fear-based place, but to teach discernment and protection so that you can go about your life and you don't have to worry about what's following you. That thing has to worry about you turning around to meet it. Use discernment and prepare to protect yourself, not fear-based, whereas you hide from it, you face it. This is happening. We find out where Sammy is going. It's to be with his cousins. Now, this is actually one of the coolest scenes in the movie because we're aware that Michael B. Jordan will be playing twins. But in this moment, I low-key kind of forgot when I first saw the movie. And so at one moment, the camera is just on Smoke. He's leaning against his car in front of the old sawmill. And as the camera slowly pans, we see Stack. And, I was already like, wow, I really like looking at Michael B. Jordan in these, like, this old getup. I really like this look on him. And then I saw Stack. God damn! Sorry, sir. And this is when it dawned on me. This movie helped me get to know myself in a lot of ways. I didn't realize that I was spiritually a twin. So there's me, spiritual me and physical me. And then there's my twin, my spiritual twin, the Jezebel spirit. I said, wait a minute, calm down, ma'am. You are married. And the Jezebel spirit, for some reason, was like, that applies to you. We get 2 Michael B. Jordans in this movie. Thank you, Ryan Coogler. They're waiting outside the old sawmill. And this is a very cool scene. Then we see a car coming down. It's Hogwood. He's the man selling the sawmill. There is already tension. Obviously, this is in the 30s. This is a black duo. This is a white man. They're in Mississippi. Clearly, there's tension. They are having some kind of business exchange. We find out later that the twins are buying the sawmill, and everything they ask Hogwood just kind of has like a resentful, like, how dare you ask me that? Like, he seems like he doesn't want to answer questions. He gives them information, but everything they ask him, he low-key kind of has like a little spiteful response. One thing I noticed about this scene, when he asked them, what are y'all planning to do with the place? They just looked at each other. This is such a good lesson. This movie has a lot of those little moments. This is such a great lesson. You don't have to tell everybody everything. Everything is not meant for everybody. Sometimes people be prying and they don't need to know all that. Do you want to sell us this or not? We got the money, let's roll. So there's this moment where this tension erupts and Hogwood taking it one step too far, and he refers to the Smokestack twins as boys. And Smoke quickly lets him know, ain't no boys here. Stack lets him know, these are grown men with grown men money. And that's when Smoke comes back and is like, and grown men bullets. They both have a different way of going about things, but something that I noticed is they work like a team. The moment Hogwood kind of touched his gun, So did Smoke. And so they're zeroing in on each other. While Hogwood is looking at Smoke, he doesn't even see Stack coming around the perimeter and following up behind him with his own weapon in his jacket. He doesn't even notice it. And later, when they go pick up Sammy to pick up their truck full of booze, when they open the truck up, there's a snake. We see this same tactic with the Smokestack twins deployed then, where Smoke keeps the attention of the snake, and the snake doesn't even see Stack. Stack is following up with a weapon. Smoke catches it and kills the snake. So clearly they work well as a team, where they're able to block out or blindside their prey or whoever their enemy is or what have you. They're able to protect each other because they're always able to have each other's back. You see them split up. Stack takes Sammy and they go to the train station, and then Smoke takes the truck of booze and he goes into town. So they both have two different tasks. They're trying to prepare to open up a juke tonight, and the only way they can do it on time is if they split up. So Smoke goes into town. He sees Bo Chow and Grace Chow, where he orders a whole lot of fish, a whole lot of food, and a couple of signs and a menu. And we see some negotiations take place. It's also during this time that someone tries to steal from the truck, but Smoke had already deployed the services of a young teenage girl to protect the truck by honking the horn if anyone tried to steal. She did her little job. And so he came outside, he shot Terry in the ass, and they had a nice little warm welcome, but he was like, hey, look, I gotta do what I gotta do. And then Terry's accomplice, he shoots him straight through the knee. It's beautiful. Then he encourages them to get on out of the street because he doesn't want more harm to befall them, but they do need to get their asses up before they get run over. He even pays for their medical services. So it was a necessary thing to do. He's not a ruthless criminal, but so we see him then leave there and he goes to visit Annie, his estranged wife. We find out that they have both lost a child together, something Smoke is still dealing with. He and Annie get acquainted. Clearly, she is not trusting his presence there. She's wondering why he's back, and she doesn't trust the plan that he has. She knows it's wrapped up in some tomfoolery. And so they go inside. She re-ups his mojo bag. They get reacquainted and they have a nice little reunion. I said, go ahead, Annie. Do it, girl. Let's catch up with Stack. So Stack and Sammy go to the train station. While they're on their way there, though, while they're driving down the road, they are having some interesting conversations in this car. And Stack is explaining to Sammy how to find a lady's button. Do with that what you will. He's teaching him how to pleasure a woman. Then they get into the conversation about Smoke and Stack's dad. What happened to your dad? And he's like, oh, well, my dad used to beat us, mostly me. He didn't mean it. Clearly, this is trauma. When he beat me so bad I passed out, when I woke up, Smoke was already burying him. So halfway done burying him. First of all, that tells me how long Stack was out, because Smoke had time to kill the father, probably with brute force, because we later see how Smoke can fight. He kills the father. He has to dig a grave, put the man in the grave, and now he has to fill it back up. For him to be halfway done burying him, he must have really hurt Stack. We see that Smoke is all about executing justice, so I'm not going to question the man. So they arrive at the train station. We see them meet up with Delta Slim. This is actually my favorite character introduction in the movie. The way the camera pans up from the hat all the way up to Delta, where he's playing that beautiful harmonica riff. We get the front view of Delta, and then we get the behind the head view of Delta, and then we get the profile of Delta Slim. And the way he's like sitting there, the lighting, I want that as like a picture in my home. I want that, a freeze frame of that. It's just so beautiful. You have like the kind of blue lighting, but then you have the back lighting is so bright, and then you have Delta Slim, and you can just see the careful lines and the sweat on his face and the way his hands and the harmonica are resting. Like everything about it just looks like a beautiful work of art. It's my favorite character introduction in the movie. It is beautiful visually as well as sonically, and it's just one of my favorite moments. That riff, that harmonica riff, really hits you right here, especially at the movies. So anyway, we see them kind of negotiate. Delta Slim is a famous blues musician. He's already playing at another club called Messengers, where we see Stack trying to find an angle to sell him on coming over to the new juke to play. Now, as he's listening to him, he's picking up on what his priorities are: money, drinking, consistency, yada, yada, yada. Stack prepared for this. So he pulls out an Irish beer, something they don't really have in Clarksdale at the time. And he pretends he's about to drink it. And he's like, I can offer this to you as well as all this money, blah, blah, blah. He lets him take the beer. Delta Slim is sold. He now has a musician. Now, something I noticed, everything about the way Michael B. Jordan portrays Smoke and Stack is so intentional. The way he hands off this beer is like my favorite moment from Stack in the movie, outside of No Vision. I love the way he hands off this drink. I just think just looking at it, Michael B. Jordan definitely did research and he really became these characters, but that handoff was just chef's kiss. Anyway, there are several moments in the movie like that. Also, Annie, when she is re-upping the mojo bag and she's lighting candles, the way she flicks the match on beat, there's just so many little special moments like that in the movie. Then we see Pearline. Sammy notices Pearline in the crowd. He introduces himself. They've been seeing each other around, but clearly he is interested. She lets him know she's married. He lets her know he doesn't give a damn. Then we have Stack. He gets confronted by a woman who appears to be white at first, but then we find out that maybe she isn't. We later find out that she is mixed somewhat. But she and Stack have a previous romance. It did not end well. Stack left. He sacrificed their relationship so that she could have a brighter future, knowing that there wasn't a future in dating him. Not only is he a criminal, but they are from two different worlds. He's Black, she's white passing. And so he knows that that spells trouble in the South at that time. So he's like, this is never gonna work. Just go live your life. So she does. But she's very upset at the way he broke up with her because he essentially led her on and then he just dipped in the middle of the night. They go and they meet Cornbread. Now, Cornbread is actually in my world, because I'm such a big Ballers fan, this is Charles Green. And I can't see him as anything but Charles Green. Despite Omar Benson Miller doing such an amazing job in this role, I'm still always going to see Charles. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, look, Charles Green's ancestor. I love this. So Charles is working in the fields. He's already behind on his quota. Stack finds his angle by talking to him a little bit, and then he commences to another perfectly delivered sales pitch with the help of with the help of Cornbread's wife, who says, hey, go get that money. So Cornbread comes, he's going to be the bouncer at the new juke joint. They get down the road and they head to the new juke to help get it prepared. And then we see Annie and Smoke get on the road with all the fixins and the supplies and everything that she's going to be bringing, and they go to the juke. While all this is happening, we see a man, looks like he fell out of the sky, shows up at the house where these two people are, and they're very hostile, but he's very convincing. We see him use several different angles to appeal to them. He's looking for a way in, and it kind of reminds me of how we saw Stack earlier keep up dialogue with people so he could find his angle. He recognizes that, oh, they have Klansman robes, so he changes his whole pitch. He starts using kind of racist language. He started using different angles. At first, he was like being honest. He was like, hey, they took my wife. I need some help. This wasn't moving these people. When he saw the Klan robe, he was like, oh, hey, these dirty Indians, they took my wife. And he starts appealing to their interests and to their mindset, and it works. They let him in. Shortly after they let him in, we see indigenous people show up, and they're trying to warn these people, and these people are still being hostile. But the first time it was a wife and a husband. This time it's just the wife. And so this man is like, hey, have you already let this man in your house? And she is not giving up anything because she immediately assumes the worst because she's racist. That is when these people are like, okay, let's roll. So they left. And this woman goes back into her home. She's looking for her husband, goes in the back and finds that he has been turned into a vampire and she is mixed. So now we have Club Juke up and running, and we're getting ready to have a great night. They got the music going. You can hear and see the fish frying. They have Irish beer and Italian wine. Now, early on, we figure out that these plantations have been exploiting the hell out of these people. They've been paying them in plantation money. So the money is not US dollars. It is money that only works on the plantation. It would be like if Chuck E. Cheese paid you in tokens. You can only spend it at Chuck E. Cheese. And so Smoke wants to essentially say, nope, you can't have anything unless you use real money. But we see Annie and Stack are like, we're going to have to be accommodating. We need to do this for them. This has to be for them. It can't be all about the money. Later, that comes back to bite, but I do understand their sentiments. So we then see Pearline shows up. She and Sammy quarantine off and start talking, and they do their little banter. Now, I noticed Pearline don't ever have her husband with her.
Ladies, leave your man at home. The club is full of ballers and their pockets full grown.
Where is your husband, Pearline? Anyway, seemed like she snuck out because she later says that she walked to the club. She don't ever have her husband, child. She left him by the wayside. She came to see her man, my nephew, Sammy. So we also see Mary show up, the same woman who confronted Stack at the train station. This is where we see Sammy try to intervene, and he's like, Mary, you need to go, girl. This ain't safe for you. And she's like, I'm staying. And then she goes to the bar. Smoke sees her and he tells Stack, hey, you need to get her out of here. So Stack goes over to tell Mary, get the hell up out of here. And they go back and forth, which then erupts into this emotional moment where he admits that he still loves her, but he knows it doesn't change anything. So she should still go, and he's just going to have to live with his feelings. And he walked out. This scene is so funny to me. Every scene where we see Mary, she got all this mouth, and I don't blame her, but she got a lot of mouth. The moment she says that she can fight, Suddenly it's just a hushed, careless whisper. Because at one point, Stack is like, you need to leave. And she's like, get your hands off me. And he said, okay, I'll pay one of these field bitches to drag you out of here, which, Stack, if you're a misogynist, immediate turn off. But he says, I'll pay one of these field bitches to drag you out of here. And she goes, shit, you tell me how to fight. I'll beat up every bitch in here, you know it.
Fine. I'll pay one of these field bitches in here to drag your ass out.
Shit, you taught me how to fight. I'll beat up every bitch in here, and you know it.
I taught you how to walk away when the money is up, too.
I'm gonna need you to speak up and project out. You said you're gonna do what to these women in this facility? She's like, no, beat up every bitch. See, if I were Stack, I would have been like, huh? You said you'll beat up every bitch? What bitch you talking about? Like, I would have been like, point her out. I would have really been messy if I were him. You have to get the job done. He said you gotta go. You gotta go. But she ended up staying. Stack walks away. This is when we get this huge moment in the movie. One of my favorite moments in the movie, I actually think this is my favorite moment, when Sammy performs I Lied to You. It's Sammy's original song. It's him finally coming into his own as a little blues musician. He's probably been practicing for years for this moment. And so he plays, brings the house down. We actually get a visual representation of what his gift is. He pierces the veil. Hell, he drops the veil. We see all of the ancestors of everyone sharing this moment with Sammy. Their ancestors are there with them. Not just their ancestors, but their lineage in spirit form. We see people from the future, people from the past, and we're all together from all over. We even see Bo and Grace Chow's ancestors, both of their ancestors, with them in this moment because they are sharing in this moment with Sammy. Sammy is gifted. Just like Sammy's dad said, you also attract the good and the bad, but Sammy's dad said just bad. Here's the bad that Sammy's dad was warning him about. It's Remick, the vampire we saw earlier, as well as the couple that he turned. And now they're a little trio, a little blues trio. So they walk up to the juke. Cornbread is like, no, you're not getting in. Something I found funny about Cornbread is one, right when he was about to interact with Remick, we hear a little bit of his conversation and he's talking to this guy and he's like, he called himself telling me about the cotton. That part is so funny to me because it just goes to show no matter what era, we're going to complain about the bullshit that happens at work. There's always going to be somebody at work. Just like Eric Mays hated Mrs. Hokenroder, I feel like that energy is every Black person at every time period at work. There's always going to be somebody at work that's getting on our nerves. I love that moment. Another moment from Cornbread is when somebody showed up, they owed him $2. And we saw that money is a big motivator for Cornbread. So you don't play with his money. That's how Stack was able to get him to be a bouncer when he'd already denied it. So we see Cornbread confront this man. The way he grabs him, I said, oh, look at Charles Green. Look at the Black Swan. It's good to see you back. Anyway, Remick approaches Cornbread and Cornbread is like, no, but he had already sent for Smoke and Stack. Smoke and Stack and their ladies show up to also guard the door. And this is where we see Remick really try to sell them on letting him and his friends into the club to play a little bit and spend some money. They perform a prepared number called Pick, Pour, Rob, and Clean. Now, I wouldn't have let them in, but I absolutely would have been dancing because even in my seat, I was like, is something real eerie about the message of this song? But I just can't stop dancing. I mean, Andre 3000 would be so disgusted with me. I'm not trying to hear it. I just want to dance. But we do see Smoke is not moved and he's like, yeah, y'all gotta go. Stack, however, is in the corner just doing a little jig. I said, oh, baby, you already gone. They got you. So they determined that it's not safe to bring them in because white people in Black spaces mean trouble. Typically, they're looking for a problem and they're going to bring their clan buddies and it's just going to become a massacre. This is in the 30s in the South. It's going to become a problem. So they disperse. We see Smoke pull Sammy aside and he says, hey, I saw your performance. You're really good. And Sammy shares like, hey, I want to make a life of this. That's when Smoke is like, don't. I've never seen a happy musician. It's not safe to do that. You need to go devote your life to the church and you need to follow in your father's footsteps. He's a very respectable person. Or if you're determined to leave, go over to Mount Bayou. It is a Black-owned place founded by freed slaves. You will find a nice, respectable life there. Sammy doesn't want to. Sammy wants to travel north. He probably wants to go to Chicago and he wants to be a musician. Smoke threatens his life. Sammy is determined to do it. He stared down the barrel of Smoke's gun and stood by his dream. There was no shaking him or changing him. So then we catch up to Stack and Mary, where Stack is telling Mary, hey, the club is going to go under because people are paying with fake money. So Mary is like, hey, since I'm white passing, why don't I go out there and talk to those white people and see if they want to spend some money in a different way? Let me see what their motivations are. So Stack is like, all right, here's the gun, protect yourself. Mary goes out, they perform again for her. But this is where it's so interesting where you can see how Mary, she just doesn't have the instincts because she hasn't been taught the instincts. Again, she's been living as a white woman. She has a white husband, they have a farm, she pretends to be white, and she's white passing. And so she doesn't have the instincts for certain types of danger or some certain types of duplicity that people who have been through it kind of have and that we pass down. Because as these people are talking, she sits down next to them. Why are you not maintaining your distance? Why didn't you ask him like, hey, bring me the money, as opposed to me coming and sitting amongst the three of you? Why don't you bring me the money? At one point when Remick is about to bite her, she does jump up and put distance between them, and she draws her weapon. But then she turns her back to the damn vampires. I was like, oh my God, Mom, you are clueless. Never turn your back to the enemy. As a matter of fact, you shouldn't have carried your ass out there by yourself. Why didn't you ask Cornbread to come and stand and watch the interaction or the exchange? Why didn't you take 2 or 3 people with you that could have stood off in the distance to make sure everything was all good, who could watch your back? There was zero instincts. I was like, oh my God, what's not clicking? Now, after Sammy's groundbreaking performance, he and Pearline duck off into a little room where he shows her what he learned in the cruise control mobile with Stack. So now she is performing, and this actually feels like she is conjuring something really strong. There's just like an energy with her performance, her song, the way she delivers, the notes that she's hitting, the way she's performing, the body movements, the stomping. All of this is just like a conjuring energy. And it's like she's conjuring up this certain energy that just sends chaos into the club. Because as she's performing, we see one man get stomped out who was trying to steal money in a gambling game. We see him get stomped out, and they stomped him out on beat. Then we see Mary headed back in. She's now a vampire, but nobody knows. She's walking on beat. She comes in, seduces Stack, and eventually bites Stack and turns him. Smoke walks in and catches Mary biting Stack and just lights her up from the rooter to the tutor. He made quick, light Swiss cheese work out of her. She was holier than holy could be, and she fell over and woke right back up and was like, you thought. She tries to attack Smoke. He dodges her, which I think that was because he was wearing the mojo bag. He dodges her, and she runs out in a very funny way. Oh my God, Haley Steinfeld, the way she ran out of this club cracks me up. I love that moment so much. But we notice that Stack is dead. Now, they don't know she's a vampire yet. They just think she killed him. So obviously Smoke is grieving. Everybody heard the gunshots. So Bo Chow and Grace Chow escort everybody out. The night is over. Delta Slim, Annie, and Sammy all come into the room with Smoke, and they're just grieving as Stack is dying. So Stack passes away, or so we thought, and Annie starts to put 2 and 2 together. This woman was shot, got up and ran. She said so she came with a crew. She's looking at the scene and sees the bite on his neck, and she's like, you know what, this don't look good. I think this is a haint. We need to get him out. Smoke is very resistant to this, so they compromise. Let's just lock him in the room until we can figure this out. They locked Stack in the room, and while they were waiting outside, Grace had asked Bo to get the car so they could leave. Bo didn't want to go. He wanted to stay by Smoke's side to figure out, how to help after Stack passed away, because he's a friend. This loyalty will cost you. I understand they had a lot working against them because they have a child that they have to consider first, but yeah, it certainly cost them in that moment. Had they stayed and prepared to just stay and be there for Smoke, they would have been all right. But Bo Chow goes out. We find out later he gets turned. And then as everybody is just kind of coming to terms with everything that's going on, Cornbread finally returns after having been turned out in the woods. I forgot to tell that part. So Cornbread got turned in the woods because he took the longest pee break in the world. So he walks back up and he asks if he can come back in. Smoke is like, where have you been? And he's like, oh, I've been out here and blah, blah, blah. He's kind of trying to pull out an excuse, but Smoke is still so confused. And he's like, what happened to you? And he was like, Stack is dead. So he was like, oh, well, let me in so I can help. Now, the door is open as it can be. He could have just walked in. And that's when Annie said, why can't you just come on in? Why do you have to ask? And he's like, oh, well, that would be rude. And she was like, you're dead. You're a haint now. You're not really Cornbread. And he gets so mad. He's like, shut up, Annie. So finally, during this confrontation, he's like, well, I'll leave, but give me my money. He uses this moment when Smoke hands him the money to pull Smoke outside and tries to bite him. But again, Smoke is wearing the mojo bag. So he shoots him in the face. This camera work is so terrifying. We switch from seeing them, seeing everybody in frame, we switch to Smoke's point of view on the ground. And all we see is Cornbread walking over us with half his face blown off with his eyes turned. And it is scary as hell. I said, no, Black Swan, please. It's so scary. It is terrifying. They pull Smoke back into the juke and slam the door. It's important that you know Delta Slim shat himself in this moment. It's important. As they're trying to come to terms with what they just saw, because that was terrifying, they get a knock at the door. It's the room where they hid Stack. It's Stack. He's awake. And they're like, how in the hell are you awake right now? And he's like, oh, it looked bad, but I'm okay. And he's trying to use his excuses. And that's when it clicks for Annie. These are vampires. So she runs and grabs some pickled garlic because she's the only one who's putting it all together. She runs and grabs some pickled garlic. Stack at that moment knocks the door down, but Annie had already prepared for this. So she pours this garlic all over him and he runs out because, you know, he's a vampire. So she explains to everybody, he's a vampire. I know how to deal with this because I've heard stories, but it's going to take a lot. So she gives him the rundown. He's like, wait a minute, my husband's outside. What are you talking about? And they're just like, you're gonna have to let Bo survive. Now, something Smoke says right here is so funny because he goes, Bo know how to handle himself. And I was like, what the hell has Bo Chow been doing that makes you think that he can fight vampires? You have a lot of confidence in him. So they're debating with Grace and they're like, Grace, it'll be fine. We just have to wait till morning. It'll be fine. So they soothe her one time. As they're in the middle of this, we get Perline, who's screaming in the kitchen area. Somebody over there is in a pool of what looks like blood. Smoke is then like, we got to get this body outside. They get the body outside. They come back in. And now Annie is like, well, who bit him? So they can't figure out who bit him. So they're like, okay, it must be somebody still in here to prove that none of us are vampires and none of us have been turned. We all got to eat garlic. So they all eat garlic. Perline was getting on my nerves. So was Grace. Just eat the damn garlic. Anyway, but outside, we see Remick is getting resourceful. He can't get to Sammy. He wants Sammy because he wants Sammy's gift. He wants to pierce the veil. Now, we find out that Remick is an old vampire. I mean, he's an old vampire and he's been missing his family for years, possibly even hundreds of years. He's been around for a long time. And so he's desperate to see his family because he hasn't, and he just lost his wife. So he's looking for some connection. So he decides now that he has pretty much everybody else, including Stack and Mary, he's like, you know what, maybe I can pierce the veil on my own. So he and the rest of the group of vampires, they start performing a song on the Rocky Road to Dublin, which I love this moment. I love this moment. And Jack O'Connell was dancing his ass off. I love this moment. And I love the ad libs at the end. So they're all dancing. Cornbread, this was your moment. He killed it. Can't pierce the veil. And we see that disappointment at the end of the song when he can't see his ancestors anywhere. He's just like, well, damn, I done turned all these people for nothing. So later we see that the guy Smoke and Sammy dragged out, who was laying in the pool of blood, it turns out it was wine. It wasn't blood. He was in there stealing their Italian wine. So they go back out to get him. But when they open the door, child, Cornbread is tearing him to pieces. He is hungry. And we learned that he's hungry by Bo Chow. So Bo Chow walks up and Grace can tell immediately from his energy that this is not Bo, this is Bo's body, this ain't Bo. And he's trying to get her to come out or let him in. And that is when we see Remick. He comes up with another sales pitch. And it's clear that he's taking on parts of the personalities of everyone and all the memories of everyone he's turning. And they're taking on him as well. So they're all mixed together. Now, he starts trying to get Grace to come out by trying to pitch woo at her. It doesn't work. He then sees Sammy and they all protect Sammy. They don't let Sammy out there. But then Stack comes and he talks directly to Smoke and he knows how to sell people on things and he knows Smoke's angle. He knows everything about Smoke. So he's like, hey, you know, the freedom we've been looking for. We've been doing everything together. I'm not doing this without you. I need you. This is the one moment in the movie where I was like, I would have folded. I would have won because it's Stack. Two, I'm like that. I'm a baby sibling and I have a younger sibling. And if this were either of my sisters, I absolutely would have folded because it's just in you to protect your sibling. And I would have had a real hard time if my sister was like, please come out here and help me and protect me. Or please come out here and be with me. I love you. I'm not going to let anything bad happen to you. We have to do this together. I would probably be like, oh my God, is there any kind of compromise? Remick, is there a part-time position open? Can I do this a little bit? Maybe not a lot of it. What are my options here? I would have been trying to figure it out. I felt so bad for Smoke and Stack almost had him, but we later find out that Smoke has no vision and we learned this from Stack. They shut the door and this is when Grace loses her mind because during Remick's sales pitch, he asks Grace about their daughter and he threatens their daughter. So Grace is now beside herself like, oh my God, they're going to kill my daughter. Everyone is trying to calm Grace down. But while this is happening, the whole crew of vampires descend upon the club and they're all singing Pick Poor Robin Clean. This is driving Grace mad because she can't stop thinking about how vulnerable her daughter is and she's about to snap. So she confronts Smoke, who is shaken up because he now sees his dead brother talking to him and he's trying to figure out what to do. He's shaken up. Plus we learned that Smoke has PTSD from war. And so he hasn't had the cigarettes that Stack usually keeps prepared for him to calm him down either. So he is beginning to spiral. He's losing his mind a little bit. And he's like, Grace, just give me a second. Now, he pulled a gun on Perline earlier when she wouldn't eat the garlic. Why are you not pulling a gun on Grace? Quick and easy solution to your problem here. pull the gun on her. I hate to say that, but also, girl, you are risking everybody. Now, my personal thought would have been, okay, if she's that gung-ho to go out, let her go by herself. You are welcome to go out, but don't you invite them in. It was good knowing you, Grace. I would have let her leave. They're all trying to keep each other safe. I would have let Grace go when I saw that she was a threat to everybody else. Anyway, so Grace loses it. She snaps and she invites all the vampires in. She says, come on in, motherfuckers. So they come on in, motherfucker. Grace, the most big Billy badass of everybody, throws this little weak Molotov bomb, and Remick is like, girl, get that out of here. Knocks it against the wall, starts a fire where she stabs Bo, and they just die in the fire. And I'm like, y'all could have let her out and they could have did this on their own. This could have just been a really sad couple dying in fire by themselves. You endangered everybody else because you were inept. Anyway, the vampire brawl is happening. Everybody fighting everybody shooting, stabbing, blood, gore. But then we see Smoke, and we see a vision of Smoke, how he was at war. And he is mowing through these people. One of my favorite versions of Michael B. Jordan is when he is killing somebody or whooping somebody's ass, which is why I love Without Remorse, and I love the Creed series. He's so good at like war and battle. He's just so good. But this little combo, he was stabbing and moving and punching and shooting. I got my whole life. I love that scene, and I could have had 30 more minutes of that. My goodness. That's why the end was so good for me. So they're all fighting. The vampires are winning. In one moment, Annie injures Remick. Stack sees this and attacks Annie when she's distracted, and he turns Annie because it's him and Mary's motivation to have the four of them back together as a little family. But Annie knows the cost of being a vampire, and she wants to be with her ancestors. So she had asked Smoke earlier, hey, if I die, I need you to send me to the ancestors, meaning finish me off, don't let me turn. And he agreed. So Smoke sees this and he breaks. He goes and he finishes Annie off, and they can tell when he finishes Annie, that's when Stack is like, oh shit, then it's nothing for him to kill me and you. We need to go. So he takes Mary and he gets her out of there. Now, the rest of the vampires are descending. It's when Delta Slim makes a judgment call, and he tells Sammy, Pearline, Smoke, he rushes them upstairs. He makes sure to give Sammy his guitar. And then he cuts his arm with the bottle of the Irish beer that tastes nasty now that he's been eating garlic. And he says, last call, Delta Slim. When I tell you, this is a moment where I was like, oh my God, is this really making me tear up? Oh my God, Delroy Lindo made me cry. I was so hurt when he died. So they're running upstairs. They're trying to get away. They open the door to go out from the top and just jump over the side. And that's when Remick reveals himself with the best shimmy so far. So he comes in. Now earlier, Annie had hit Remick with garlic, toe him all up. Smoke had also done something to Remick, because when Remick comes through that door, he muffs Smoke hard as hell. That felt so personal. He muffed the hell out of Smoke. So he comes in, Smoke and Stack start to fight. And that is when Pearline and Sammy start to fight Remick, because Remick is trying to turn Sammy. So Pearline stabs him in the back, but she misses his heart. That's when Remick turns around and attacks Pearline, turns her. And when he turns back around to get Sammy, Smoke, who's already whooping Stack's ass, shoots Remick. And he tells Sammy to run. This gives me a glimpse of just how strong Smoke is, because he was tearing his vampire brother up and still shooting other vampires. I know he was hell as an opponent in the war. I know he was something special to see him and Stack together. Ooh, I would love a little prequel with just that. Anyway, Sammy jumps out of the second floor. He just falls. It's the saddest little moment. As he's running, he runs into the water. He's trying to get away. Remick catches up to him. Remick scratches him across the face. And as he is like dousing Sammy into the water and reciting the Lord's Prayer, something that Sammy had started reciting for comfort and he thought it might help, Remick is preaching it right back to him. He's reciting the Lord's Prayer as well. And he is dousing Sammy in this water, kind of like a little baptism. And Sammy uses that time to grab his guitar, which has a steel piece on it, and he hits Remick in the head. One thing I can appreciate about Remick is he knows how to cuss. And I think it's because he took on some of the mannerisms of all the black people that he turned, because he certainly cusses like a black person. He said, shit. And then earlier we saw him say, that's his motherfucking nephew back there. I was like, no, wait a minute. You're doing a lot, Remick. Anyway, I guess he was taking all the fun parts. So anyway, he was like, shit, I done been stabbed. As he then tries to grab Sammy again, because now he's pissed. Smoke, who has now gotten away from Stack after an epic battle, Smoke comes behind him and stabs him in the back and straight through, which goes through his heart. He lets Sammy go. Smoke grabs Sammy, checks him for bites, and we watch all the other vampires turn because now the sun is rising, but we also watch this epic fire tornado take Remick out of here. Epic way to lose. That is such an epic death for a villain. I loved it so much. Jack O'Connell is probably my favorite villain right now. I love it so much. So anyway, we see Sammy faint because this is just too much, and Smoke drags him out of the water. Once Sammy comes to, Smoke basically says, hey, take the car and go start your life, but bury that guitar. And we find out that the little story that Stack had told Sammy earlier, that the guitar they gave him was Charlie Patton's guitar that they won in a card game, was a complete lie. Stack was telling him a story. But the reason he told him that story was probably one, to inspire him, but then two, to hide the fact that it actually belonged to the twins' dad, which is Sammy's uncle. And the reason he didn't want him to know that is because everybody knows that the twins' dad, who used to beat them, was evil. This is what gave me a question. It might have been answered in the movie and I might have missed it, so let me know in the comments. Was the guitar gifted and whoever had it could pierce the veil? And it was your choice what to do with it, good or evil? Or was Sammy's uncle evil and he used the guitar for evil? And when Sammy got the guitar, because Sammy is gifted, he used his gifts for good. Is it possible that the guitar was actually the vessel, not necessarily Sammy? Was it the guitar? And what you do with that power is up to you. I personally think Sammy is just gifted, and I actually think maybe clairvoyance and claircognizance just runs in their bloodstream or runs in their bloodline. And maybe because the uncle was just already evil, he used the guitar for evil. I'm really curious. I want to know what y'all think, because I thought that was such an interesting coincidence that everybody called him an evil man. His brother became a pastor, and maybe he sought religion for comfort. And that got me to thinking too, because we have several duos, but one of the main duos of the movie is a pair of twins, two brothers, but they have this guitar that they gave to their cousin, and that guitar came from their dad. You have Sammy's dad, who is Jedediah. Then you have the twins' dad. I'm not sure his name, but you know Jedediah is a pastor. And he is vehemently warning Sammy about evil, only for it to turn out that his brother actually was evil. So evil that nearby towns knew how evil this man was. This evil, evil man, who was only able to be stopped by his own son, had a guitar that was then given to his nephew. And when the nephew received that guitar from his dead uncle, that nephew's dad, the brother of the evil man, who is now a pastor, that nephew's dad is now saying, hey, be weary of evil. Is it possible that Sammy's dad saw the evil in his brother his whole life and turned to religion for comfort and safety, and knew exactly what that guitar, but also that man, was capable of? And now that his son had the guitar, he feared the evil returning? I'm probably overthinking this, but I just thought that was so interesting, because I was like, man, there seems to be so much story there between the older brothers. What did Sammy's dad see that made him turn to religion? Maybe he was always destined to be a pastor, but it's also very possible that whatever he saw in his brother maybe sent him to religion for safety, and he was trying to keep his son safe as well, particularly from his evil brother's sons. There's a lot there. Anyway, it just got me to thinking like, what did the dad see? What does he know? And is that why he's a pastor? Is that why he turned to religion so heavily? Is that the only thing that kept him safe from his brother? I'm just really curious about that. Anyway. So that's when we finally catch up to the scene that we saw in the beginning. Sammy goes to church. His dad tries to get him to stay in the church and renounce the blues. We later find out that Sammy's like, nope. He takes his piece of a guitar, he takes his cousin's car, and he heads north. We later find out that he did open a club called Perlene's, and he is a blues man. Now, we find out that Smoke stayed behind. Now, when Remick was trying to ask them to let him in the club, he actually let it slip that one of the people he turned earlier was the nephew of Hogwood, the person who sold them the sawmill, and that Hogwood was the grand dragon of the Ku Klux Klan in the area, and they were planning to come back and kill the Smokestack twins as well as anyone else who was there. And so they offered to turn Smoke and turn Sammy and turn everybody, and then as a group go over and kill them. That was part of the angle he was trying to work, and Smoke said no. But Smoke remembered this, so he ended up setting a trap. He locked up the juke joint, hid all the bodies, hid the cars, and then he hid in the woods. When everybody showed up to kill them, he came out with an ambush like I've never seen before. This is one of my favorite parts of the movie. First of all, that very long shot of Michael B. Jordan coming up out of those tall weeds, shooting that gun. It was that clip in the preview that made me so excited to see the movie. I was going to see it regardless, but it made me so excited because I said, I need to know who he's killing in this one and why, because I'm a big fan of Without Remorse. So anyway, he comes out, he kills everybody, but he also takes off his mojo bag because he's ready to join Annie. Now this trap is for the clan, but it's also for him because he's ready to go. So he takes off his mojo bag, he puts on Stack's dog tags, and then he kills everybody. The last person is Hogwood, the person that's responsible for all this. Hogwood is crawling on the ground as Smoke is trailing him with a gun, and it's probably my favorite visual from the movie. Hogwood is about to succumb to the few bullet wounds that he already has. He asks Hogwood for a cigarette, and Hogwood is like, it's not funny, but just very Southern. He's like, you go to hell, nagger. First of all, you can't even say the slur right. Shut up. Trying to be hateful and you about dead. Anyway, look at you on the ground. So then I guess he thinks about it because he's getting short of breath, and he was like, actually, I can give you a cigarette. And he hands him a cigarette. Smoke starts smoking the cigarette, and as he's falling, because he also had some gunshot wounds earlier, he sees Annie and their baby. He's crossing over. It worked. Now, as he's swept up in this moment, because he got his Annie back, he got his daughter back, we hear Hogwood trying to negotiate. Oh, but wait a minute. I thought it was go to hell nagger. Nobody's been nagging Hogwood. Oh no, when you had the breath in your lungs, you should have used that to be nice. Smoke has had enough. Smoke lights him up. Worse, he lit up Mary. If you thought he made Swiss cheese of Mary, you ain't seen nothing yet. He tore Hogwood's ass up, and I loved it. Then we see him put the gun down, and this look of concern on Annie's face is so funny because it's almost like she's like, are you ready to do this? You good? You want a minute? She was like, should I be handing you my baby? You just shot somebody. Talk about your last grandstand. Anyway, that's when she hands him the baby, and she was like, put that cigarette out. I don't want any smoke to get on her. So I think this is the moment of like, shed the character, shed all your woes. It's time to cross over. Leave Smoke behind, and Elijah needs to cross over. So he has his baby, and that is how Smoke's story ends. Later, we come to see Sammy. He has a club, Perlene's, and he is an old man played by Buddy Guy, a blues legend. It was so great to see him. But he's playing music, and as the set is over and he's just having a drink at the end of the night in his own club, his bouncer comes in and is like, hey, 2 people want to see you, and they are willing to pay. So he's like, all right, come on in. The look on his face when it turned out to be Stack and Debbie Mazar, Mary, they walk in. This look was so good on her. Gosh, she looks so pretty. They walk in, and he's just like, how? And he was like, we're vampires. Smoke let me go. He just made me promise to not interrupt you. So we've been buying all your music. And so he asks Sammy to play for him one more time. He plays. He asks Sammy if he would like to become a vampire. And Sammy's like, no, I am done with this. I'm ready to go. But then as Stack and Mary are leaving, Sammy's like, hey, that day, up until what happened, that day was the best day of my life. Was it like that for you? And they have this like montage of how the day was lived by both of them, and light and fun and free they all felt. And Stack was like, no doubt about it. And that is how the movie ends. It's so, so beautiful. And it's kind of a happy ending because everybody got what they wanted. Sammy got to be a blues musician, and he got to use that to always remember Perlene. Stack and Mary got to be together. And then, of course, Smoke and Annie and their baby get to be together. So everybody got what they wanted. Here's my question. When vampires are finally killed, are they still not allowed to join the ancestors? Is that permanent? Are they no longer allowed to join the ancestors because they became a vampire at some point? Is that why that is like that? Somebody let me know in the comments, like, why can't they join the ancestors? If somebody were to take a wooden stake to Stack, would he be able to go back and be with Smoke? Because if not, that means they'll never for eternity not get to see each other. That is really heartbreaking. Anyway, that's the end of Sinners. Perfect movie. I love everything about Sinners. It knocked my favorite movie off the top spot. So now at 1A and 1B, Cooley High has been my favorite movie for 30 years. The first time I saw it was 30 years ago. I was 8 years old, and it's been my favorite movie ever since. Sinners is the first movie to knock it to 1B. I can't take it out of the top spot, but Sinners is 1A, and then Cooley High is 1B. And I feel like that's perfect. This is a masterpiece, and I knew it the first time I saw it. That's why I saw it 9 more times. Jedediah trying to tell Sammy to turn away from the blues because it's bad, and then saying it's just a place to shirk your responsibilities and people can sweat on one another. And I'm like, first of all, if you were using this on me, none of that sounds like a bad thing. First of all, I've been working in the field all day, so this is a place where I don't have to do any of that. Win. and we sweat on each other. So I get to sweat on Stack and Stack get to sweat on me. Another win. This is a win-win. You're not doing a great job of deterring the blues because you made it sound like a really great time. Plus, I know there's fried fish. I'm sold right there alone, and I'll be at church in the morning, but I am going to have a good time on Saturday night. So that was my first point. Also, I think I made the point earlier, for Jed to be a religious man and try to warn Sammy about evil, only to turns out that his brother is one of the most evil people that ever existed in this area, and everybody knows that. And now his evil brother's guitar is living with his son, which he stole and brought to the church, probably to cleanse it. It makes you wonder what the dad saw. I'm so curious about that. Like, did he have interactions with his brother that made him like, the only thing that'll keep me safe is religion, because this is real evil right here. Which then makes me say, what about their parents? How did the parents have one evil son, one not evil son? Tell me all about it. I need more. That's just me being greedy. Also, another point, Delta Slim's story in the car. They pass a bunch of inmates who are working on the side of the road. It's a little chain gang. And as they're working, we see Slim greet them, and they greet him warmly. And Sammy's like, y'all know each other? And he's like, yeah, I know all of them. And he tells the story of how he got arrested, him and his buddy Rice. They got arrested, and while they were arrested, the cops and the authorities found out they could play music, so they made them play blues music at club or at parties where they passed around a hat, everybody gave them money, and then they let them split the money. So when he got free and got out of jail, him and Rice decided what they were going to do with the money. Rice took his half of the money, and he planned to head to Arkansas to start a church, and we saw Delta Slim decided to drink his money. He decided to drink with his money. That is such an interesting part of this movie because it's a very small story, and they later find out that Rice was murdered at the train station because the person who he bought the ticket from saw the wad of cash, and they assumed he stole it. I don't think they thought he stole it for a second, but they told a mob of white people that he stole it. So that mob of white people also made up a story, said he stole it because he killed a man and raped a man's wife. They just took it somewhere totally different because they wanted to hang him and steal his money. That's really what it was. Nobody thought anything nefarious actually happened. They were just evil people. But anyway, and now we live amongst their descendants. And so they hung Rice in the train station in front of everybody and stole his money. He was headed to make a church. He was headed to build a church, something that will enhance and help the community, bring the community together. The church was used for a lot of things back in the day and now, but especially back in the day, it was a safe haven, essentially, even though, yes, sometimes churches did, stuff happened at churches and today, but for the most part, it was something used to help the community. He was murdered on the way to do that. But Delta Slim took his money, and he was careful with his money. He probably didn't show it to everybody. That was the fatal mistake. But Delta Slim took his money and he drank it, and he was just fine. And it kind of gave me that thought of when Black people use their resources to build, that seems to attract people who want to tear it down. We are disenfranchised in several ways. And so, of course, we have resources to help accommodate us. We'll never get true equity, but we do have resources to accommodate us. And even then, the people who are part of the majority who do not have those issues, who are not disenfranchised, to remove those resources from being available to us. When we try to do good and we try to use our money to help people, we try to set up education programs, we try to set up equal and fair housing opportunities for people, try to set up organizations that'll help people learn how to invest and things like that. That gets scrutinized, that gets attacked, that they sue, they try to tear down. But when you use your money to drink, when you use your money to do anything that could hurt or harm you or your community, they leave you to it because they feel like, well, you're already doing the work. That's work I don't have to do. I'm going to let you destroy yourself and your community. Why would I interrupt you? Never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. And they've determined that anyone not them is their enemy. You being self-destructive, I'm going to leave you to it. And that was what stuck out to me. Like, he was going to do something that was essentially self-destructive and they didn't bother him. But Rice was going to do something that would help his community and they killed him. And I just think that trickles down, like when we have the conversations about liquor stores in Black neighborhoods and how Black neighborhoods are in food deserts, or food deserts are created around Black neighborhoods. And there's the environmental injustices that happen and the racism. There's so much to it. And I thought that little story encompassed a lot of that. So that stuck out to me. Those are my takeaways. There's a lot of these little moments in the movie that just kind of feel like, whoa, that touched on something much deeper, but we have a story to tell, but it stays in the back of your mind. That story in the car, there were so many things that it triggered for me, but that was the main one. Also, Delta, the trauma of reliving that and talking about that came back to him, and he started to have an emotional reaction. And within that reaction, he turned that into song, and he sang his way through it until he was able to regulate himself. That is why the blues exist. There's so much to this movie. What was your favorite part of Sinners? I absolutely love this movie. I have so many favorite parts, these little moments, like when aching back into the club during Pale Pale Moon, when she was walking back back into the club while Perlene was singing. She was walking on beat. And while the men were jumping that one guy, they were stomping on beat, which I just love that when Annie was flicking her match, she flicked the match with the music that was playing in the background. There was so many little special moments like that. This movie was made with so much intention. It was so beautifully made. And the soundtrack is absolute fire. I mean, everything about this movie, everyone was at their best. Fantastic movie. So y'all let me know what you think of Sinners in the comment section. What was your favorite part? But also, could you answer this? If there was one thing that would have gotten you to either invite them in or join the vampires outside, what would it have been? What do you think they would have been able to use to get you to let them in? For me, it would probably be Brahms ice cream. I don't know that I could shut the door on Brahms, so I might try to find a way. I might get a stick and try to pull the ice cream in, see what I can do. But chances are they would have had me at hello, child. Anyway, y'all let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section and what would Remick have been able to say to you to get you to come outside. That's all I have. Thank y'all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.